All right, so crypto is now the number one right here in the USA. USA has actually taken the lead.
Oh, it's
What do you
about
think about this?
time.
I
I'm
love
very
it.
excited to report on this story today for this very reason. I was like, how long is it going to take for us to see this US, front runner status?
Yeah, we're gonna get into that today. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back to Tech Path.
And I'm Lisa Francoeur, back at it again.
All right, so Lisa, you
Yes.
get North America addresses received 750 billion in crypto between July 2020 and 21. This was our annual, or an 18%, 4% of global transactions. So that essentially makes us top dog.
What was interesting about this was that from the period of like June, July, we saw a 1,000% uptick.
Yep.
And so when you start seeing 4-digit returns, like 4-digit increases, like this is a very telltale sign
Yep.
of how much more, how much more accepting the U.S. is of crypto versus it being a fad.
The thing that surprised me in this article was the attribution to DeFi.
Yeah,
37%.
That was very, very interesting. I mean, I couldn't believe that was the case. Not to say I couldn't believe it, but I was happy to see that was the case because I think that DeFi is very alluring for a number of reasons.
Right.
But what was also interesting was to see that retail investors, transactions under $10,000 were the biggest movers in the run-up. So. Versus some other places in the world.
Yeah, which tells you that you've got a lot more people, testing it out, trying it out, and really trying to understand it, I think, which is a lot of it. And you look at, we've got 50 million people here in the United States that have invested in crypto in some way or the other. And with that kind of movement, even though there might be smaller investors, just so much more of us that are more modern, you've got access to these modern tools to essentially utilize these kinds of assets and implement them. And guess what? You've got education products like, hey, what we're doing.
Exactly right.
To help you kind of get on your way. So East Asia, this was back in the article, East Asia has long lost its edge. Starting in 2019, East Asia accounted for the lion's share of crypto transactions globally until last year, 2020.
Well, I mean, I think that there are a number of reasons that are contributing. The mass exodus of the miners.
Yeah.
But you know what is interesting? In spite of the deceleration of growth, the market in Asia still grew by over 450%.
Right.
So although we've seen a softening, to see triple-digit growth, that's still very, I think, bullish.
Yeah.
Globally for
I'm really
crypto.
Interested in the DeFi side, because I think it does something that potentially could solve a huge problem here in the United States, and that is the massive immigrant population, which don't necessarily have access to banks in many cases, and wham, you've got a big opportunity there, just like El Salvador.
And the World Economic Forum spoke about this. I think it's something like, close to 50% of the world is unbanked.
Yep.
And when you have statistics like that, if you can bypass what it means to have to, work with these central authorities, then people are going to look for that solution.
Sure.
See, the thing about the United States in comparison to other places in the world is that, one, we haven't really experienced hyperinflation to the extent that you've seen in Venezuela. So the urgency associated with crypto adoption isn't necessarily about a catastrophe or a calamity or what have you. It's more so there's like curiosity. And so now it's like, okay, crypto is like a hedge of sorts as well, because one thing that we also didn't mention is that, and I said this to you earlier, the inflation rate.
Right.
People are looking for ways to preserve their wealth.
Yep.
And when you have a 5.4% inflation rate, literally the highest it's been in 13 years, that's a part of the motivation in what kind of other investment vehicles are there to offset that.
Big time, big time. Plus you've got the immigrant population, which is highly mobile.
Sure.
And super plugged into utilizing new tech tools, because you look at all social media. If you look at the growth rates of what we've seen in these markets and the number of people that are just here in the U.S. that are trying to start their life, get their value or their livelihoods going.
So this is what's interesting. 50% of the population might be unbanked, but nearly 50% of the global population has a smartphone.
Bingo.
And if you have a smartphone, then in theory you have access to the internet. And so with that comes a lot of white space in terms of opportunity.
So much so, we're going to tell you how to track this DeFi space a little closer, and this is a thing called DeFi Llama. You guys should check this out. This is a good, it's one of the tools I use out there in terms of really understanding, but DeFi Llama, look at this total value locked right now. That's 217 billion currently in the DeFi market, up 4% over the last 24 hours.
Wow.
You've got Curve's dominance, which they measure based on, much like Bitcoin dominance, in terms of the projects that are out there on DeFi, but Curve being one of the major protocols, and just the number of chains that are available on it, as well as Aave, Maker, Instadap, WBTC, which we've seen, Compound, we've also seen here on the show. And then if you jump into these chains, I want you guys to take a look at this because it's interesting to see, one, the activity, if we can get that to paint up. Yeah, so also when you look over here at the chains, this gets into the whole aspect around this, and you've got Ethereum, Binance, Solana, and then Terra. Avalanche right there, big one, 47 protocols right there. But look at Binance still setting at 124. We just did a show on Binance, you should check it out. Big money moving into Binance, but the bigger thing is they're really fostering in all these developers. They're putting like 300 million out of a 100 million, or a billion. Was it a billion? 300 million? I believe it was.
Yeah.
Where they're trying to foster new development on Binance Smart Chain. So that's going to be a big one.
Which is brilliant. I mean, listen, developers, attracting them to your project in and of itself is the way to drive innovation. And so, yeah, that was genius of them. It's interesting because there's a lot of crackdown on Binance, a lot of countries are saying that they don't want Binance. In the UK, we reported on that a couple months ago, but it's not stopping Binance. They don't seem to be skipping a beat.
Yeah, well, they've got a lot. I think they've got a lot of big fans, and even though they've cut really kind of their whole approach toward the Chinese market, unfortunately, they've had to disassociate with those accounts where you can only hold in Binance if you're a Chinese citizen. So that's an issue. Back to DeFi Llama, because this is another tool that I think overall that gives you, much like a CoinMarketCap or a CoinGecko or any of those, that can kind of help you guys really out in understanding where these yield performances are.
That's what I'm talking about.
This will get into some very interesting ones. So there's Growth DeFi right there at 69% on the 1 day. Zoom out a little bit here. Singular, Eternity, Elixir, Farmers Only. This has been another one that's been kind of interesting. Wheat Protocol. A lot of these are very low and emerging. There's Float right there. That's been one. Artemis coming in. But this is basically the 24 or 1 day change. If you look at the 7 day change, look at Farmers Only. 2,000%.
Am I saying that correctly?
This
Over
is the
2,000% change?
Yeah. Now, very small in terms of the people who are on there. Remember, these are market movers. The market movers are designed to do one thing, and that's give you guys education on what to start looking at, whether you're starting to test in DeFi or not. The point is it's giving you some direction and not financial advice. So a lot of these things are super risky when you get into DeFi. Now, there are also very secure ways to jump into DeFi as well. I mean, the yields aren't there. You don't get those kind of astronomical yields.
With great risk comes great reward.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, all right, so you guys are, of course, stopping in on the podcast. Number one thing you can do over there is leave us some comments. But before you do any of that, I want you to do one thing, and that is jump into the Diamond Circle. Diamond Circle is free to you, easy to get and enter. All you have to do is give us your name and information. The reason we need that is so that we can contact you for a couple of reasons. One, we're going to give you free content that is member-based only on big analysis on stuff we don't normally do here on the YouTube channel. But best of all, we're going to do airdrops back to our community. In other words, giving back to our community. So you guys want to join for sure.
And that's also too why you want to continue to keep up with the journey on YouTube. We do chart analysis. It's really important to have the visuals to accompany what it is that we're saying. So if you're not subscribing yet, make sure you do click that bell, and also comment below if there are projects that you want us to cover. If you have any thoughts on any of the analysis that we've shared. Look, this is a community. The more we hear from you, the better job we can do in serving you. So keep us posted.
Yeah, absolutely. You have an idea for the show, drop it in the comments below. Hit me up on Twitter @PaulBaron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.